My name is Johan van Niekerk, and we are discussing the ultimate business formula. How do you grow from idea to startup to small business to medium-sized business? We've been discussing in this series how this transition works, what this formula looks like. And I have created this formula over the last 25 years, helping hundreds of business owners grow their businesses from ideas to ultimate success. And so in this series, we've been discussing the different elements. And today I'm going to be discussing the final element in how to grow into a medium-sized business. And then I'm going to do a recap and talk about all the things that I have discussed in the last few videos, just again to give you a quick overview, because I know I sometimes lose track of all of these things and there's too much information. So I'm going to be trying to summarize all of it just quickly again today so that we can have a nice overview of what we've discussed so far. The final element that we're going to be discussing in the skyscraper that we're building is evolution. That is the final step in ultimate growth. From here on out, you can build this skyscraper as big as you want to, as many floors as you want to. And evolution is that final step in really keeping things going, really keeping growth a constant. And so what do I mean by evolution? I see evolution as a transition of power and responsibility. This is where you have the opportunity to truly start removing yourself completely from your business. I once heard somebody say that if you want a true measurement of how stable your business is, the question is, can you remove yourself from your business for 6 months or more and come back to a stronger business than the one you left, a more successful business than the one you left? And this is where that transition starts happening. I think a lot of small business owners want to get out too early and they want to try and move out. We discussed in the previous video about employing yourself, trying to find somebody like you and trying to expand your business by employing a second you, which is impossible. Nobody else on earth is like you. There's 8 billion people and no two are alike. So nobody with the same skill sets is out there that can help you replace yourself. And so this is the portion where we start evolving and where we start transitioning power from you to a management board. We've created all these things. We've discussed how we create them. Make sure you check out the previous videos if you can't remember or you haven't seen it yet. How do you create these structures? But this is where the true transition starts happening. But you cannot just go hands off and walk away. You have to make sure that things are still in good hands. You have to make sure that the business is still continuously growing. And that all these things that you've created, that you can control the business and that people have clear guidelines in terms of how they have to build the business and grow. You need to make sure that this is continuously growing. And this is what evolution is about. So how do we start transitioning power and responsibility, but make sure that we are doing it sustainably? And so this, again, is where we touch on only 4 little elements. There's so much depth to each one. Again, in future videos, we will be discussing those, but I'm going to touch on 4 different elements today before we jump into that recap of what we've discussed over the last bunch of videos. And so the first one is actually leadership development. Again, in the previous video, I spoke about the importance of your executive management structure. And here we have to make sure that you remain on top of the latest leadership development, what is out there, what's happening, what the market is doing. And you have to have a plan, and there has to be a clear strategic plan going forward. How do you continuously identify and develop leaders in your business? Because again, it's not just about the development of the existing leaders, but if your organization is going to keep on growing, if your business is going to keep on growing, you have to have a very strategic plan so that you identify potential and leadership early and help them develop into the best version of themselves. Because when you do that, you buy loyalty, you get them into your corporate culture, and you build long-term sustainable development in the company, because people can see people develop in the company and they don't have to jump from one company to the next to find career development. So leadership development at this point in time, it is very clearly identifying leaders, helping them grow, and having a clear path to both responsibility and success for the people in the business. The next one is also team building as a whole. So outside of the leaders, we also have just normal people that work in your business. Hey, the vast majority of people on earth are just normal worker bees, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need them. We need them to create the honey. Without the worker bees, there are no honey. So we really, really need these people. And so team building is so important in an era where we live on a very emotional plane, and where everybody talks about living your truth and what you feel like, and your feelings is more important than the next one. The key here is making sure that you get people to connect. And in an online world where we do more and more work online, how do we get people to build? How do we build a team? We need to create personal relationships. We need to create platforms where people get to connect on a personal level. And so this team building, this is so important at this point in time, because that will help your team grow strong. It'll help your teams evolve. What team building are you into? And again, it's not an idea of, oh, let's go white river rafting or let's go wine tasting. There has to be a structure behind it. You have to create a plan, a dynamic plan that is adaptable to help your leaders build their teams. So team building, very, very important aspect here. Then the second last item, which is a bit of a bone of contention, is autonomy. You have to start thinking about, how do you get people to the level of autonomy? Up until this point in time, you as the founder or the founders would have had a big level of control over decision making. And you need to find and create a system on how you can let people take over decisions completely. And so this autonomy, what I've identified over the years, is that it in any event already starts with smaller decision making. But we have to get you to the point where you allow people to make bigger decisions without you. And again, there's a whole process behind this. It was designed into this whole all these elements of the formula that we've been discussing. I've discussed it on a very superficial level, so to say, but they all fit together. It's almost like a spider web. Everything connects everywhere, so that you have this catch-all, this net that helps people grow and develop, that helps your business grow and develop, so that there's a completely holistic approach to success in this thing. But the autonomy side is that final mental hurdle of, have you created the systems, the processes, have you developed them to the point where they can make larger decisions by themselves? So autonomy, and then the last point is innovation. And innovation is such a thing that we generally think innovation is inspiration. But in innovation, it's 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration. And so you have to plan for innovation. You have to literally put energy, effort, and funding into innovation. You have to develop it. You have to create a culture of innovation. And so hopefully with applying this formula, there is already these elements in your firm, and that this is generally, you've encouraged your staff, you've encouraged the people, your partners, you've encouraged innovation. But this is the time where you really have to structure innovation. And it's interesting, the stuff that comes out of innovation when you force it sometimes. Many years ago, I had legal practice, and in this legal practice, I had innovation meetings on a weekly basis. And you think, legal practice, second oldest profession on earth, how can you be innovative there? But I can tell you the innovation that came out of this was phenomenal. And it was just forcing people to think outside of the box. So I set parameters. And what I did is I told my staff every week, I want 2 ideas from them. One is, how can I improve their work environment? How can I make it better for them to work? And the other one was, how can we give our clients a better experience while working with us? Sometimes not great ideas come out of it. We had ideas of free bars at night, free alcohol and things like that, which, I prefer that people spend time with their families and their friends than in the office drinking. So I didn't see that as part of our corporate culture. But there were also some great ideas that came out of it. There's also some great things that came out of it, where my staff reported that their chairs were uncomfortable. And I thought, chairs uncomfortable, how is that? But I decided to take them seriously, and I took one of the people's chairs, put it in my office, and I sat in that chair, and I realized that those chairs are so uncomfortable. You have to get up every half an hour just to stretch your legs a little bit. And I realized that makes their jobs uncomfortable. I gave them new chairs just because I cared about my people, and I wanted them to be comfortable. But what came out of it was also a massive jump in productivity, because generally what happens is every half an hour they got up, they walked around, they chatted to this person, to that person, or whatever the case may be, and productivity fell. But when they were more comfortable in their chairs, they sat longer. That's also innovation. But the concept is here, the innovation is you have to create the parameters so that there is constant innovation. And in the example that I used, That would be having weekly meetings, forcing my staff to come up with ideas where a lot of the ideas, like I said, we couldn't implement. It wasn't good enough. But we were able to create something that my staff enjoyed, where I was able to give back, and where we increased productivity massively, and also got lots of benefit for our clients because of ideas that my staff came up with, because they are on the ground. And this is what I mean with innovation. How do you make sure that there's constant innovation and that you don't remain and fall behind like Blockbuster did or Kodak did, as I mentioned in the previous videos? Guys, those are the elements. That's all the things that we've been discussing over the last few weeks, over the last few videos. What does this business formula look like? And I remind you again, there's a free version available for you by clicking below. Download that free business formula so that you can see what it's all about, what are all the elements that you need in your business. And listen, if you want to learn more, also make sure sign up for our newsletter. We'll be adding more and more valuable content, describing these things, giving you more detail, helping you grow your business as we continue more in this series. However, as a recap, let's talk about all the different elements that we spoke about. I used that visual of building a house and building a skyscraper. And so what are these elements? How do we get from idea to startup to small business to medium-sized business? And I described it, like I said, you cannot build a house by starting with the roof or starting with the furniture or starting with the finishes. Yes, you plan for all these things. It's all a holistic process, but there's certain things you have to do before you can do other things. And the first thing is you have to start with the foundation. The foundation is your personal development, your personal mindset, your identity, your values, your strengths. Go back to the first video. I discussed that in detail over there, but that's the foundation of it. The next one is your business setup. That's your walls. What kind of business setup are you creating? Then the security that you need from the elements, the roof, that is your cash flow. How do you create cash flow? What are the elements to discuss there? What are the things to notice there? Is cash flow. Then we get to the next level is the finishes within or inside the house. What kind of finishes do you need? That's the controlling, both business and finance controlling. All the different elements went into that in depth as well. Make sure you check that out. And then the final step is once you've completed this house, is then it's all about the fit out, the furniture, the finishes, the interior design. And in that sense, what that is, that's your sales and marketing. Then at the end, once you've created all of these other things, then you fit out the house by making sure you do the sales and marketing correctly. Again, all of those elements discussed in depth in a previous video. Check those out below. All of them are linked. Everything is discussed there. Once you understand how this works and the business has grown from startup into a small business, then what we do is we start looking at growing into a bigger business, into a medium-sized business. And then again, like we do in the building industry, we build now a skyscraper. We've built a beautiful house. Now we want to build a skyscraper. We want to expand the business. We don't just want to take care of ourselves. We want to take care of more people. We want to be more responsible for more things. And so what we do is we take this house and we visually compress what we've built, and that becomes part of the foundation of a skyscraper. And there we have to review a couple of things. I discussed these things. What do we review? We look at, again, our vision, our mission. We look at our goals. We look at our values. There's so many different things that we look at, we review, but we also add certain things. Again, discussed in detail in the previous video. From the foundation, we go into business development. That's the steel that goes into the building of the different floors. The business development, how do you do that properly? How do you structure this? This is the core. This is what gives strength to it. Without steel, the concrete is not very strong. We need that steel, and that's the business development. Then once we've done the business development, the next thing is the organizational structure. That's the concrete as such. That's making it now strong. That's making it usable, is the organizational structure. What do we need within the company? How do we plan for that? How do we grow? And then the final element to make sure that this goes on forever, it's just finishing it up, doing the finishes in the specific level that you're working on. And that's the evolution that we discussed in this video. Guys, again, the takeaway here today is that business might not be simple, but business is clear. And there's a formula. And that formula I am offering you for free. So the takeaway is, don't be arrogant. We don't know what we don't know. I also needed a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of input from different people in my life, which I'm very, very thankful for. that allowed me to come to these realizations. So take the help when you can. This is where you grow, is by getting advice from others. That's the big takeaway for today. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.